Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're actually stepping onto a quiet, sunlit terrace. It feels less like a typical patio and more like a workshop, a space just humming with invisible, methodical gears. Our guides for this dive into the mechanics of business are Mira and Arav. Mira's brought along a brass caliper, one of those tools they used to use to measure textile thickness, and a packet of peppered sesame sticks. Arav's got a printout of a production schedule from a regional bakery. Together, they're going to help us look at systems not just as rigid structures, but really as a form of stewardship.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this quote from Mira perfectly sets the stage for our explainer today. Usually when we think of business operations, we picture cold, mechanical processes, right? But Mira challenges that immediately. She argues that operations are actually about presence. It's about the way things are made, with a certain rhythm, a deep respect. The mechanics of a business aren't just gears turning blindly in the dark. They are a deeply human, interconnected heartbeat.
Section 1. The Heartbeat, Operations Management.
So let's transition from that beautiful, philosophical terrace into the practical reality of what this actually looks like on the ground. Arav describes operations management as an art. Literally, the art of designing, running, and improving systems. It's not simply about fixing machines or writing up shift schedules. It's about creating flow. Think about that bakery making millet cookies. They aren't just randomly tossing ingredients into a bowl. Operations means they are meticulously planning the procurement of that millet, carefully managing the oven times, tracking their inventory, and making sure the delivery is on point. It is the literal heartbeat behind the product they offer to the world.
To really build our understanding here, we need to shift our perspective. We so often relegate operations to the back end, that invisible area where people are supposedly just making things. But Mira makes a fantastic point. Operations is actually the backbone of an organization. The scope is just incredibly wide. It covers planning, sourcing, production, quality control, logistics, and feedback. Consider a textile firm. They don't just weave fabric. They coordinate dyeing, stitching, packaging, dispatching, the whole shebang. Or look at a school. A school doesn't just teach. It schedules classes, manages complex facilities, tracks attendance, prepares reports. Operations manages that entire flow. It truly is the backbone.
Section 2. The Skeleton, Location and Layout.
Now, if operations management is the heartbeat, the physical spaces where these operations happen form the skeleton of the system. And what's really interesting about this concept is this profound shift in perspective. Location is generosity, layout is dignity. In traditional business, geography and the physical arrangement of space are mostly seen as mere logistics, basically just ways to cut costs. But here they are viewed as deeply human acts. Where you place your operations and exactly how you arrange them directly impacts the human beings working within and interacting with your system.
Let's walk through a few examples to see exactly how this plays out. Arav points out that a cooperative dairy intentionally chose a site close to both its farmers and its urban markets. Now, this physical choice reduced transport time, for sure, but the human impact? It built immense trust and allowed for incredibly quick responses. It was an absolute act of generosity to those farmers. Then there's a publishing house that set up right near a railway junction, dropping their costs and massively growing their outreach. And layout is just as vital. Mira describes a bakery that totally redesigned its kitchen to reduce unnecessary movement for its bakers. That improved both hygiene and ease of work. A textile firm grouped their machines by process, dyeing, drying, stitching, so workers could move naturally without fighting the layout. Even a school arranged its classrooms specifically to maximize sunlight and silence. This isn't just clever design, it is designing for human dignity.
Section 3. The Nervous System, Enterprise Resource Planning.
All right, with the heartbeat and the skeleton in place, we need a nervous system to connect these physical spaces and isolated departments together. Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP, is exactly that nervous system. Arav explains that it's a digital platform that brings different business functions into one unified system. This allows for real-time updates and drastically improved decision-making. For example, that cooperative dairy we just talked about, that use ERP to seamlessly track milk collection, payments, inventory, and delivery, entirely eliminating duplication and confusion. To our guides, ERP isn't just some boring software, it's the essential stitching that unites the entire organization.
So what does this stitching actually look like in action? Well, an ERP is made up of interwoven modules. Finance tracks the budgets and payments, inventory monitors the stock levels, HR manages staff records and vital training, sales handles the orders and customer data, while procurement tracks vendor contracts. The real magic here is that absolutely none of these slices are isolated. They all speak to each other. When a sale is made, inventory drops, finance registers the revenue, and procurement might get an automatic signal to reorder. It's a fully interwoven digital nervous system.
But because it's so tightly interwoven, implementing an ERP system takes immense patience. You absolutely cannot rush it. It requires training, adaptation, and a deep respect for the existing rhythm of the business. Take that textile firm, for instance. They didn't just flip a switch overnight. They phased their ERP rollout over time. First, they started with inventory to get a solid handle on their physical goods. Then, they moved to integrate finance. And finally, they wove in HR. They didn't rush the process. They respected the natural rhythm of their people and their systems.
Section 4. The Pulse. Scheduling.
So we've built the heartbeat, the skeleton, and the nervous system. Now we transition to the final mechanical component, the pulse. Once your operations are physically and digitally set up, you have to decide exactly what happens and when. AirOff breaks scheduling down into 3 really clear steps. First is loading, which simply means assigning tasks to resources, whether that's machines, people, or blocks of time. Second is sequencing. That's deciding the exact order in which those tasks need to happen. And finally, monitoring, which is actively tracking the progress to make sure the flow remains totally uninterrupted.
Let's ground this in our examples. For the bakery, loading and sequencing means assigning specific oven slots based on the type of dough and the required baking time. That way, nothing burns and no oven just sits there empty. The dairy sequenced its delivery trucks based on geographic distance and customer demand to ensure the milk always arrives fresh. And the school heavily monitored its class schedules, teacher availability, and even student feedback to keep the educational flow healthy. Viewed this way, scheduling isn't just about management trying to exert strict control. It is an act of care. It's ensuring that people's time and effort are used purposefully.
Section 5. Conclusion. Empathy in systems.
Let's slow our pace down just a bit here as we conclude this philosophical walkthrough. Imagine we are back on that quiet, layered terrace with Mira and Arav. The brass caliper sits perfectly still on the notebook. That packet of peppered sesame sticks is nearly gone. The terrace feels like a calm, highly focused control room. And they leave us with this beautiful balance. Yes, operations absolutely must be incredibly efficient, but they must also be empathetic to the humans running them. ERP systems must be mathematically precise, but implementing them requires deep human patience. Scheduling must be timely, but also tender. The ultimate takeaway from our guides is this: systems must always serve people, not the other way around.
And so, Mira and Arav write down a final reflection in their notebook, and it's a perfect place for us to end today's explainer. I want you to look at the systems in your own life and work, and ask yourself, what systems do I shape? How do I honor their flow? What tools help me really listen to the people inside those systems? And ultimately, how do I balance precision and patience? Keep those questions in mind the next time you look at a spreadsheet or a daily schedule. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.